Hey there, and welcome to episode 7 of Paint with a Pint. I am your instructor, Janet Hockman, and when I woke up this morning, to my surprise, it was snowing, and I thought it is a perfect day to paint a winter landscape. The materials that you will need for this episode are in the description for this video below. To briefly review those, you will need a 16 by 20 inch standard size canvas, 4 different size brushes. I will be letting you know what size to use and when. A water cup and paper towels for rinsing and drying off your brushes. An apron for protecting your clothing from the paint. Optional will be 2 stencils for the trees, which I will review later. You can do them with or without stencils. Toothpicks for the snow at the very end. A blow dryer for speeding up the drying process in between steps. And of course, going along with Paint with a Pint, a pint of your favorite beverage. Please use this as a reminder that every time you take a sip, to just enjoy the process of painting. With all of that said, we are going to begin with our largest brush, and we're going to paint the entire background first. So I am going to dip into my white paint with just a wee little bit of blue. Very, very light blue. I'm going to take my non-dominant hand and place it on my canvas, fingers slightly spread, and I'm going to draw a line right above my top finger, and that is going to be my horizon line. So that is the line that will symbolize dividing the sky from the ground and the snow on the ground. Now I'm going to work my way from the top down to the bottom. So I'm going to take a little bit of violet, a little bit of blue, and some white. And I'm going to begin with kind of a darker blue, a little bit of violet at the top of my canvas. And not forgetting about the top of my canvas. For those of you that have been watching my episodes, you know that I highly encourage you to paint the top of the canvas and the sides, so that if you don't have a frame at home, it looks really nice hung up on the wall, even without a frame. And now I'm just going to work my way down, and as I work my way down to the horizon line, the sky is going to get just a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter. I'm going to blend a little bit of blue in there. And maybe a little bit more blue. You can really go with this streaky effect. So you don't have to blend the colors on your palette. You can just pick some of them up on your brush and then let them blend together on your canvas. It will create a little bit of movement in your sky and a little bit of movement in your background. And as I'm working my way down, painting the sides as well. So just moving my brush side to side, letting those colors blend together as I move my brush along. As I'm doing this, maybe just adding a little bit more blue as I work my way down, but still keeping it very, very light. Just letting those colors blend together. If you haven't done so yet, please subscribe to my channel so that you can get weekly videos. I do 2 videos per week. So I do a time-lapse video of the episode to come, so you can get kind of a preview of what's on its way. And then I also, by the end of the week, publish the full episode. So I do 2 videos per week, 1 painting per week. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so that you can stay in the loop. And if you have any friends or family, anyone you know that likes to paint or would like to learn how to paint, please share my videos with them. And you can also go to my website, paintwithapint.com. I've got upcoming events and paintings for sale on my website, so you can check that out as well. So we're almost to the snow at the bottom. I want to make the background or the sky just a little bit darker than the snow. So I'm going to just continue to add a little bit more color to this very, very, very light shade of blue I've got going on here. And the paint is still wet, so you can really play around with your colors while it's still wet. Okay, now that I have the sky background covered up, now I'm going to mix the same sort of color, so this lighter blue, lighter violet, but I want it to be very light. So I want the snow to be the lightest part. I'm not just using straight white because I want it to have a little bit of color, but I also want it to be slightly different than the background or the sky. Now that we have that covered up, I want to take a moment to use my blow dryer and speed up the drying process. You can rinse out your big brush, and when we come back, we're going to start some trees. Now that we've had time to let the background completely dry, it's time to work on some of these little trees that are in the background. And we want them to show up really small because they're in the background, so they're smaller. So I'm going to take my smallest brush, my 1/4 inch brush, and I'm going to mix a little bit of black and phthalo green to start. So a very, very dark green is what I'm going for right now. And I'm going to start with just lines, drawing lines. So on the left side of my canvas, about 2 fingers in from the edge of my canvas, I'm going to draw a line that starts at the horizon and goes up about 1.5 to 2 inches. And then on the opposite side, again about 2 inches in from the edge of my canvas, just a wee little line over here. And then about a hand distance from the edge of the right hand side of my canvas in, I'm going to draw about 4 lines. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm just going to take that brush and I'm going to very lightly tap my brush along each side of the line to create some branches for the trees. And it might just start out as the skeleton of the tree, and then as we move on, it will get a little bit thicker and a little bit thicker. So just tapping my brush along each side of the lines that I created to make the texture and the direction of the branches. You can have branches that are going up, you can have branches that are pointed kind of down. Now that I have the skeleton, now I can go back through and really kind of develop those branches to be a little bit thicker and more defined, the trees a little bit more defined. As I move down, the branches get a little bit wider or longer, bigger. I don't know about you, but I really enjoy the first snow of the season. There's something just special about it. It gets old after a while. Like, I don't like when, winter lasts into March, but there's something nice about the change of the seasons. So just continuing to fill these in, and this is really giving us great practice for the main subject of this painting, which are the 2 large trees closer to the foreground. So you get some practice on these tiny trees in the background, figure out, you know, what direction you want the branches to be in. And then by the time you make it to the big trees, you have gained a little bit of confidence in yourself, and it doesn't seem so daunting to paint those bigger trees. Okay, now that I have painted those tinier trees, I'm going to let those dry. Hang on to your small brush, we're going to want that again. And when we come back, we're going to start to outline and prep for the bigger trees. Alright, now that we have the smaller trees in the background, it's time to start working on these two bigger trees, which is really our main subject of this painting. I suggested at the very beginning that you can sketch out some stencils for yourself for the trees so that you can play around with where you want them to go. This is totally optional, and so you can just kind of play around and figure out where you want those trees to go. I'm putting the larger one on the left-hand side and the smaller one on the right-hand side. I suggest that you don't have them ending exactly at the same point, so side by side those are resting at the same line. So stagger them a bit. The smaller one should be further behind, while the larger one should be up closer to the foreground. I am not going to use the stencils for this episode. I'm going to do this without the stencils. And I'm going to start with my smallest brush again, mixing up a dark green to begin. So black and phthalo green. And the first thing I'm going to do is, same thing I did with these smaller trees, is draw a line where I want my tree to go. So start that right here. And then I'm going to do a smaller tree. Okay, now that I have that laid out where I want them to go, I'm going to tap my little brush and just get the skeleton of the trees completed. So just tapping my brush to create some of these very light branches. So just the skeleton to start. I'm going to do that with both of my trees. I have a little bit of burnt sienna on my palette as well, right here. So I'm going to use a little bit of that now to start adding in a little bit of a different shade of green into these branches. So now that I got the skeleton, I'm going back through this again and just filling in more branches, making it a little bit thicker, a little bit more lively. Just tapping to create that texture. This really does take some time, so I'm going to give you a moment here to pause, stop, and take your time filling in these branches. Keep in mind that if you're working your way from the top to the bottom, they are short and small, and as you work your way down, they get a little bit bigger, but you don't want to go too wide because you'll end up taking up too much space. So try to keep them a little bit thin, tall and thin, and once you take care of that one, work to the other one. When we come back, we're going to add some snow to the branches. So all you need to do right now is just be working on filling in the skeleton of the tree. Now that we have filled in the branches for the trees, it's time to add a very light coating of snow over all of the tree branches, including the ones in the background. So I rinsed out and cleaned off my smallest brush, my 1/4 inch brush, and I'm just going to tap that brush into a little bit of white paint. And then on a clean part of my palette, I'm going to tap that white paint off, so there's just a wee little bit of white paint on the bristles of my brush. And then I'm just going to very lightly tap over the top part of some of these branches. To give it the effect that there's snow laying on some of these branches in the background. So all I'm doing is very lightly tapping my brush. Again, you don't need a whole lot of white paint. You need hardly any white paint on your brush when you do this. And kind of just mimicking that same technique that you were using when you were creating the branches in the first place, just tapping and moving your brush as you tap along the tops of those branches. You want to be able to see through to the tree, but we want to create a little bit of texture of snow over top of each branch. Okay, so now that I have the smaller ones in the background covered with some snow, I forgot about one more, hold on. Now it's time to work on the bigger trees. Again, putting my small brush in the white paint, tapping some of that off, and then just starting at the top. And very lightly adding some snow to the branches. And moving on to the big tree. So really taking my time, as you can see. I'm going to give you some time to finish up just getting the snow over the branches, and then when we come back we're going to make it look like it is snowing. have some snow on the branches, it's time to make it look like it's snowing. So using the handle of my smallest brush, I'm going to dip the handle into my white paint. And then randomly throughout my canvas, I'm just going to dot that handle all over, including over top of the trees and over top of the snow in the foreground. And I'm going to do that throughout the entire canvas. Then you can also, instead of using the handle of your brush, you can use a toothpick and you can get some really small snowflakes throughout, just to give it a little bit of variety. And it's really up to you how much snow you want to add. go ahead and give you some time to fill in and just let it snow. Once you've added all the snow, your painting is complete. I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If you have not done so yet, please like, comment, share, and subscribe so that you can see more weekly videos from Paint with a Pint. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode, and happy painting.